You want to lead us in? We don't have Jake today, so we're kind of short on music.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to maybe lead us in.
Nick,
Well, we all have instruments.
Oh, we do.
And they're called our voice boxes.
All right, ready?
So ready?
1, 2, 3.
Welcome to the podcast.
So back call. Welcome back to the CorridorCast. We have a really fun show today. Something that is certainly very dear to me, a topic that I care a lot about, the idea of film school, or just really school for the arts in general. We are joined with a plethora of beautiful people today. Griffin.
Thanks for having me.
Jonah.
Hi.
And Nick. Not
Hey.
Matt. It's Nick. Let's get those reps in, guys.
Yeah. I think so. I kind of had an identity crisis.
You're
though.
starting to
Yeah.
relate more to...
I might be
Okay.
Matt.
We'll navigate it.
I'm like, am I Matt?
Yeah.
I
It's
don't know.
a tough question.
Tough question.
But, we want to talk about film school, like the relevancy of it, the importance of it, question mark. I know for me, I went to Chapman Film School for 1 year and dropped out. I don't know about you guys. Where did you guys go and how long did you stay there?
I went to Northern Illinois University and I graduated with a
nice.
bachelor's.
Right on. So I went to Emerson, and I also graduated, but I took like kind of a hiatus in the middle,
Uh-huh.
and I studied film production there.
Oh, sick.
I went to Brooks Institute of Photography, now closed, and got a BFA in film. Cinematography and editing was kind of the focus.
Yeah.
But I got a ton of questions about like, hey, did you go to film school? Should I go to film school?
Yeah, me too.
Like that's probably one of the most common questions I receive just from, cold call messages or whatever,
Mhm.
people reaching out.
Well-
And I'm kind of conflicted on what to say, to be honest.
I get it. Like, where do you stand? Like, are you pro or...
Oh,
Or
yeah,
con.
I don't know. I mean, like overall, yes. Like, hey, if you can afford it and make it happen, then I think it's an overall good experience.
Mhm.
But do you need film school to be successful? Heck no.
Yeah.
Heck no, especially these days.
Yeah.
Like film school has never been like less needed, I think, now
Yeah.
because everything's
Mhm.
so accessible.
It's like a really... we're in an interesting kind of department here with visual effects. I know, like, I went to Chapman for 1 year and I was very much of the mindset that, I'm like zero generation here. My family moved here from England when I was 3 years old. My brother dropped out of music school. And so I was like the last kid in the college system. And both my parents were very, very pro getting the degree. And I was too. I was of the mindset that I'm going to be summa cum laude. I want to be the guy at film school. Like, this is the path that I'm supposed to take in order to grow
Yeah.
as an artist. And I spent 1 year at Chapman. And I remember feeling pretty let down, to be totally honest, with not necessarily the infrastructure, just my access to the things that I was craving, because I was always self-taught through high school with visual effects and with editing. And I went there with a focus in editing and film production. And like one of the first things out the gate that I wanted to do was take an editing class. And the way that they prioritized the different students, they would say, okay, well, freshmen and seniors get priority, and then the juniors, and then the sophomores. And I was coming in as a sophomore.
Okay.
Which, side note, I went to PCC and I followed the exact curriculum you needed to transfer to be a junior. And they just disregarded some of the classes. And they're like, well, this one doesn't count. This one doesn't count.
So cool.
And I'm like, so wait, now I need to take Spanish again at full rate? Like, there's a
Yeah.
reason I went to community college, to get rid of some of the general ed classes that you don't want to pay full whack for. And they just disregarded them. So that was my first like moment of, whoa, that's not cool. And I didn't end up getting to take any editing classes. They filled up instantly. And I think I got in one visual effects class or something, but everything else was like essence of acting. Like these studies that I guess if you don't know what you want are good. But if you know exactly what you want out of film school, it's not ideal to have to run the gambit of every single department. You know what I mean? Oh, we got a guest. Oh, nice.
He's here for an arrow.
What is this?
Yeah,
what
what
could
is
this possibly be?
We'll never know. Well, we will soon.
I very much relate to your experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much relate, because I had the same feeling when I like the idea of film school going in, and when I got there, a lot of gen eds, a lot of the essence of acting or directing actors on screen, which are like great classes. I actually think that they're too soon. Like, I think that for 90% of kids who go like right into college, it's just, you're not going to absorb enough of it. It's not worthwhile at that age. Like if you're in your like 18, 19, you're in a college environment, it's the dream to be in college. Everyone's going out partying, everyone's meeting friends. Is this the time to like deep dive into like the
Directing.
essence of like what it means to direct someone and like really envelop a character? Like some people might be able to do it, but like I would say like 90% of people at 18, 19 years old, it's a waste of money, not because it's not a quality education, but because you're not a quality candidate yet.
Yeah.
And the thing about becoming an artist and living as an artist is maturing and realizing how to hone your craft. And it's just like, is it worth shelling out thousands and thousands of dollars at that age to get those things? I don't think so.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, like who haven't been to film school or haven't been yet, maybe, the way that it works, I mean, me transferring in as a sophomore, the idea was that you're sharing general education classes with the film classes that you're taking. And if you're doing film production, they want to give you a run at everything. They want you to get a taste of every single department so you get a better sense of what it is that you like or what you don't like. And that's great. And that's super helpful for some people. I'm not saying that it's not. It's just for me, I knew what I wanted going in. And there were so many restrictions in place. Like I wanted to do focus on editing, and I wanted to do a minor in visual effects. And I literally had to run the gambit for months with a teacher sponsor, filling out forms, navigating the appropriate channels to meet the head of the film school and ask her, can I please do this with, at this private institute that I'm paying to be at? Can I please study these
what
two
became
things?
of that?
I had 5 minutes with her and she said, they're too similar. And that was it. And I looked at the professor who supported me and he's like, all right, we have to go back to the beginning of the process again. And I was like, this is crazy. Like they're similar because I want to use them both. That's why I wanted two similar things, because I want to make a career out of these two things.
Wow.
And I was shut down pretty hard. And I remember just being like, I'm paying top whack to be here and I don't feel like I have the flexibility, to the point where I actually had a laundry list of tutorials that I didn't have time to do until the summer. And I remember telling myself, it's okay. Like I was in audio engineering class or something. And I was like, it's okay. Just focus on this for now. And you can learn in the summer. And then I caught myself and I was like, that is so backwards.
Yeah.
I have to wait till the summer to learn for free while paying tens of thousands of dollars to be in an environment that doesn't fit me.
Yeah.
And I feel like there should be more flexibility for fitting the student.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think it comes down like, why do you want to go to film school? Why do you want a higher education? And, I think, Jonah, why did you want to go to film school, for instance?
I wanted to go to film school because, similar to Jordan, my dad, he's a teacher. So there was never a question of whether or not I was going to college. Like it was just that I had to go
Parental
to college.
expectation.
There was a huge So I would say that was like number one.
Cool.
Honestly.
Yeah, I can relate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think most people can probably relate to that.
And
Who are like thinking
yeah.
about, should I go to film school or not?
And then number two is it was something that I was one of the only things that I was truly passionate about at that time. And I was very excited at the prospect of like going to a place of higher learning and being able to be given like the facility to experiment. That was like really critical to me. And I had visited the Emerson campus and I saw like the TV studio and the rental area. And I was, my eyes got all big.
Gear.
And I was like,
gear,
this is
so
a
much
place where
gear.
I can like really put kind of the rubber to the road and be able to like work on this. And that's obviously an intentional thing that they do when you tour. And then they say, hey, by the way, that's like for the seniors.
Yeah, by the way, it's going to be 3 years, maybe.
They show it and then they put up the red tape.
And
like,
what about
yeah.
you, Griffin? What was kind of like your process getting into it?
So I didn't go to film school, unlike you guys. I went to art school. I got a degree in illustration.
Still very relevant. I feel like it's the same kind of thing, though.
Yeah, I went because like from the time I was like very little, I was like, I want to be an artist when I grow up. Everyone says you get out of high school, you go to college. Like this is how I be an artist. And I think that in previous times, like the reason why you would go to art school is you have access to working professionals in the field who will show you how to do what they do. And like you're saying, you have facilities and materials. And for a very long time, it was a very affordable thing. And I don't regret doing it. I met some of my best friends in life. I was in like a community of like-minded artists. And I had some good professors because my department was very good. But even though the department was good, looking back, a lot of the learning I did was still on my own in my bedroom. And like it's not like every day they were like, okay, this is how you put together like a basic palette for painting different skin tones. It was like, here's your assignment, go do it.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go home and you're in your drafting table and you like are figuring it out.
Mm-hmm.
And the simple fact is like, I'm not going to say that they're equivalent or that one can replace the other, but if you want to learn from a professional illustrator, like how do you do convincing and lively human skin tones, you go on youtube.com for free, because that's what we were doing. We were like looking stuff up on YouTube at home after class to do the assignments. And like, you know, and the crazy thing, we were still paying for materials. Like, you know, we were paying like lab and materials fees to the college, and then had to bring our own materials anyway. Because, but you know, the cost and it's very different for film. It's very different for things where you need like a computer that can handle it and software licenses and gear. But if you're talking about art specifically, you don't necessarily need a Wacom or Adobe. You can go to Blick or Michael's, and that $100 worth of art supplies and some time on YouTube is a lot cheaper than, you know, I went to a state school and it was still pretty expensive. If I'd gone to a private art school, which I'm sure is very similar to film school, American private art schools are some of the most expensive schools in America, sometimes up there and above like Ivy League. And it's like that.
It doesn't make any sense.
Why?
No.
Why, dude?
I think, a lot of the things that you build along the way at film school, and I assume with your experience, with your degree as well, is like build confidence and build relationships, right? And at a young age, I think that's really important. And sometimes you can't do that for yourself. But what you're talking about makes me feel like what you want to be doing is that self-teaching, but also the most important thing in this industry, all creative industries, is building confidence in yourself and then putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of these college programs kind of like are trying to do for you, which is like, here's an advisor, here's like a peer group, here's your internships that are available to you. And then they like try and kind of push you through that door. And for me, I just really hated the like how confined that was. And I just found my own that were like cooler. I found them on like Instagram, and then I found them through friends, and suddenly I was working with people that I really liked instead of working at like the local TV station. And then I was like, okay, then why am I paying thousands of dollars for like your resources when like I actually I'm not like super into the resources that you're able to give me. And that was when it started really like falling apart for me, where I was like, okay, so I don't super love the classes. I feel like I can't really give this all my attention. And what I feel like I'm receiving from you in terms of like actual industry help is like a direction that I don't really want to be going in. And so I don't know. Was that kind of where it fell apart for you?
For me, it was certainly the lack of control over my schedule. I wasn't learning the things that I wanted to learn, but I was paying top dollar to learn things that I didn't. I'd much rather have the free time to look online and do those things. But one thing that I will say about film school that was tremendously beneficial, and we've all kind of touched on it already, which is interesting, is the relationship aspect. Because what you're doing is you're entering a world of like-minded people, and that's incredibly valuable. And I'm still friends with a lot of people that I met at Chapman, and that made it worthwhile for being there for the year. But I'm really glad that I left when I did, because, you know, I wasn't interested in being a DP. I didn't need to get my hands on all that gear and all the things that they have access to. On the directing side, I started directing right out of college. As soon as I left, I started commercial directing right out the gate, just funding my own projects, selling them to clients, and making enough to make bigger and bigger projects. And I made my career that way. And, you know, even looking at the visual effects side of things, I learned by doing. And I feel like learning by doing is the move in every aspect. If you ask most people where they feel like they've grown the most, it's on set. It's doing those late night, you know, friggin' deep dives because you are so passionate about this subject. You're just pulling resource from wherever you can. And there's so much free resource now, more than there's ever been. And there's also more high quality teachers for cheaper than there've ever been, all online. I mean, we're talking in visual effects terms. I want to learn Houdini. I can find a course by Stephen Nipping, who's a technical director at ILM, teaching me how to do an explosion that he's actively doing in the Star Wars films. And I can email him and he'll respond to me. He's done it for like $75. Are you kidding?
That's
One
like
of the best minds in the
It's
industry.
like a minute of Dodge College time, probably.
Yeah, legit. And
Like
that's one of the things, right?
One breath.
Is the cost, like you're saying, the cost is so out of whack. It doesn't make any sense. And I drove, I lived off campus from my experience, and I had to drive 30 miles to get there and 30 miles back. And so it was a trek to get there every single time. And one day that really hit me in the gut was I drove 30 miles out there for an acting class. I didn't want to take an acting class. I wasn't interested. But I was going to do well in this college. It was my mindset. And I got there and I pulled up and there was a notice on the door from the professor. And she's like, I'm not feeling well. Like, no class today.
God.
30-minute warning. It took me 45 to drive there. So I wouldn't have seen it. And I look at the notice and the other kids who are in the class behind me are like, yeah, no class. And I was like, guys, we still have to pay for it. We have to pay for that for someone who's not going to show up. Like online courses, I can save them for when I need them. I can watch them again. I do it all the time. I take notes on them. I watch them. I revisit them. I email the teachers from the courses. I never felt like I had that at Chapman. And there is benefit if you're going for those reasons that Chapman provides, the gear and the friendships and whatnot. But I feel like a year in-house for me was enough to make the friends, to meet the people, and then dip and do my own thing and stay in touch. And it's kind of like a nice middle ground of getting the advantage of a film school, but not committing full force to just what could likely be just poverty for like a multi-year stretch of time of just feeding this beast.
Well, something I want to add into, because like an interesting positive for college is, like, sure, there was a lot of self-learning that I did, but I don't want to make it sound like I know for certain that I would have been just as well off being self-taught, because I think like what I went for very much was mentorship and on-hands learning. And I don't want to say that I never got that, because I don't think that's fair. And having accountability and deadlines and the teachers, getting us to think in certain ways and giving us assignments. And, if there was like an alternate reality Griffin who just was like a bedroom self-taught artist stacked up against today, I don't know if we'd be equivalent.
That's fair. Yeah.
And the unfortunate truth though is like, it's the same thing, kind of like we're all saying though, is like when you're paying like hundreds of thousands of dollars for that hands-on mentorship and that accountability and those assignments, like how worth it is that extra investment?
Yeah.
If you were to be able to do it again, Nick, like where would you stand in your like choice?
It's hard to say, man. I kind of agree with Griffin. It's you can't like be like,
yeah.
I mean, Griffin and I, having finished and kind of gone through the whole thing. Mine was a 3-year program, but I'm not sure how long yours was. It's like, yeah, I can't for sure say this is where I'd be, but I'd been making movies all through high school, all through junior college. I took JC classes to get credits done cheap, and was like, yeah, I'll just take a year. During that time, I made YouTube shorts, and that's how I met Brett. That's how I eventually met Sam and Nico, Clint, we were all making short films and connected through YouTube. That's how we all met. And I mean, those friendships are still strong. That wasn't film school, know? And the funny part is, when I finally did move down here, found a film school that finally like I really liked and seemed like it would have good resources. After all that, here I am, in a job now with all you guys. That is all, that whole connection was made completely independent of my film school experience. Like there were like these two parallel things going on. There's like the YouTube Nick and the film school Nick. Like film school Nick, could have taken his thesis project and gone and pitched it to Universal and become a director. Not that actually happens anymore, but unless nepotism is involved, and that's totally serious. Nepotism. Let's talk about it, because Jesus Christ, dude. Like I was sorry, Lord. I was touring colleges, and obviously we went down to LA. It was like a big trip, and I was like, yeah, we're gonna tour all these big film schools that I've heard all about: Loyola Marymount, USC Film School, Dodge College, Chapman.
Yep.
Those were the big three. what was the other one? UCLA. I said that probably.
UCLA
UCLA.
is a good film program.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, there's directors that come here, like for like one symposium, by the way. And you know, it sounds really great. And you get stars in your eyes when you're walking through these campuses and they're pointing out like, oh yeah, this is where this was filmed. This is where this was filmed. The steps at Dodge College. Oh, remember, recognize that? You're like, wow,
Yeah.
great. And then they show you the film school and you see, you know, the sound stages and the big screening theater and the gear room. And you're like, great. And then they're like, yeah, so, you know, the process is you'll take 2 years of GE classes. And, you know, if your grades are good enough, you'll be admitted to some film classes, you know, and get your hands on a camera maybe.
Yeah.
And if you're lucky, you'll get chosen by lottery to be the director of a project, you know?
Which, don't you have to fund those?
Yeah, you gotta fund
you gotta
them.
fund those
You gotta
separately.
fund
Oh my
them.
God,
That's
dude.
crazy. Yeah.
Oh yeah, let's rent some fucking 35 packages on mom and dad's credit card. So,
And when you're 19, 18, you don't understand money.
but thinking that's the only way I can direct a movie,
yeah, yeah.
that's what they funnel you into from that very first tour of the film school. And if you're touring film schools, this is, maybe we can give you some instruction on what to look for here, because just be aware that the whole thing is a money-making venture. It's not about you learning.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
about making money. And if you are successful, they get to put that on their poster. Right?
It's very true. Yeah.
So it's all for profit.
Yeah.
Completely. And your learning film is probably not that higher on their list because there's a million other kids that have heard about USC or Chapman College film program and all want to sign up
Yeah.
to be the next Steven Spielberg. But guess what? Guess what Steven Spielberg did? He made fucking movies.
Yeah.
He made them
Yep.
and didn't wait 3 years taking GEs. Not that GEs are bad. I think obviously the whole reason, if you're thinking about going to film school and getting a higher education, you probably want that well-rounded education, right? No,
No,
that wasn't you.
screw that, dude.
Yeah. I wanted to
Screw
know.
all around
I
education.
spent like 5-digit
No.
money to learn how to be a professional artist, and you have me sitting
Yeah.
in geology class.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
no.
We
dude.
did that all through high school.
I
you know?
can confidently say that general education classes, except for basic household accounting,
Mm.
that was the one general education class I took that was not a monumental waste of money.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I kind of disagree. I think they're, you know, you got to find the right school for you. That's what it comes down to. So yeah, we toured, you know, all the big ones.
Mhm.
And then I heard about this little school called Brooks Institute of Photography. And they're like, oh yeah, they're up in Santa Barbara. Go up there, tour it. And we drive out to the middle. It seems like the middle of freaking nowhere. It's on the 33 freeway off Ventura. You're going out to this town called Ojai. And it's like, where the hell am I? And we pull off and like we drive up and there's huge sound stages. And it's like a back lot. And it's like, what is this, dude? And then, you know, they have the school was on an old like Universal lot. Like, so they had sound, you know, stages, huge. And they'd broken it up into like 8 different stages. You could build sets. They had permanent sets built. They had red cameras. They had, you know, DSLRs were just coming into the fold. So they were getting those, which was really cool. It was like, ooh, 5Ds, sweet.
Yeah.
So like they had the resources and I was like, this is where I need to be. Plus you get to get a camera in your hand.
Mhm.
They were willing to look at past work and write off credits. So you
Oh,
didn't have
wow,
to
That's
start
great. Yeah.
in film 101. Like, here's a wide shot.
Man.
Here's a, you know, now
Dude,
we're
no
gonna
wonder
get-
this place went out of business. They
Dude.
were way too good.
Yeah, because
Well-
it wasn't for profit.
it was deeply, we came to find out.
Oh.
I happened to join the last like 3 years of the good years, right?
Yeah.
And after that, things got really bad, and you know, they started getting like the school got sold to a education like fucking conglomerate, like basically a corporation that buys up for-profit schools and tries to squeeze them for everything they
Oh,
got.
man.
It's this Chinese company. They bought Brooks Institute, and within 3 years, the whole school had basically
Wow.
they basically made it into a write-off. So
My goodness.
that's a sad story, and also, you know, sad for the fact that Brooks doesn't exist. So it's like,
yeah.
what's the degree for?
Yeah.
But there was some silver linings. I got
Hmm.
to have a camera in my hand. I got to build sets. I got to work on real sets with like a real crew, and like that was from day one.
Mhm.
But I also got some really cool GE classes. I mean, art history classes. Like There was like a random architecture class, which was actually surprisingly really eye-opening. Like there are all these little things. I mean, obviously math class was not my choice. I didn't want to really spend too much energy in that. But I do feel like higher education comes with that. Like, and if you want to go to a trade school, that's something you should seriously consider. It'll save you a lot of freaking money if you don't want to take GEs.
Yeah.
Look for a trade school. Like look for somewhere that is like a quicker program but gets you more hands-on. You don't have to spend time in those classes.
Yeah.
Like just know what you're signing up for is all I would like plead to you.
Yeah.
You know, think about all the debt you're going to go in and ask yourself, am I going to spend more time with a camera in my hand here or on YouTube making shorts, you know, and learning?
Yeah. I would say along with that, if there's one thing that I could say, and I think I would do everything I've done the same way. I like to think that I would. But if there's one thing that I can impart on someone who's like about to make that choice along with what you're saying, I dare you that if you're about to make the leap to like joining film school or art school, take a year and PA as much as you can. And to the people who immediately hear me say that and say, oh, there's no opportunities in my town, or it's hard to like, everyone wants a cheap PA. And guess what? It's hard, and the rest of your life is going to be hard finding like work in film. So like, if that's the threshold of you quitting, quit now.
Yeah.
Because like you're gonna have to put yourself out there. And if it doesn't go well and you can't handle that not going well, and you can't handle being kind of literally the lowest person on set for 6 weeks, I also think that it might not be ready for you to join this career. And that is way better to know before you spend thousands of dollars, right? So and I could say, you know, I don't know your industry as well, but maybe apprentice someone, you know, or work at like a Blick and just like get to know what you're going to be using for the rest of your life, and really like take that pause before you decide to do that. And in that time, you'll be so much better off and way more prepared in understanding of how the industry works. At which point you could be like, oh, I actually really only like visual effects. Let's do a trade school.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what I realized is like everyone on this film set and every film set I've done for a year is telling me that it's a waste of money. I really, really love history. I'm going to study that and then make the coolest historical films ever because I'm really passionate about history. Like that to me is like a really sophisticated way to go about it, because not everyone can go to film school, but everyone has an iPhone. Everyone can do it to a degree. What makes you special? Hone that as a young person. So if you're going to spend a lot of money, maybe spend it in another discipline because this one is pretty accessible.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing too, is it's the idea of structure, right? Like this is one thing that I accidentally found out that I was pretty good at, is structuring my own like learning and putting together the different things that I need to learn in order to get to a certain point. And it's also my hobby. Filmmaking or specifically visual effects is my hobby. So when I leave here, I go and I do visual effects. Like I go right into it, and I enjoy that. And so that discipline, that is something that I've kind of developed over time, lends itself very nicely to growing and learning in a solo environment. Because the reality is, the minute that you're out of the school system, like if you're in high school right now, you're told where to go, when to be there. And that is really beneficial for some people, because you know, when no one's telling you what to do, it's so easy to just go, I'm gonna play video games. I'm gonna watch movies. I'm gonna binge, you know, House of the Dragon and go to sleep. Or it's very, very easy to turn your mind off. And so if you feel like you are not the most disciplined, or you haven't developed that in yourself, that's something that you can work on in the background. But the structure of film school might still be very beneficial to you. But yeah, if you are a very disciplined person, or you're open to becoming disciplined, then there is a vast avenue of learning available to you. And I believe that everyone can learn to be disciplined. It's just getting the reps in and getting used to this new way of life. Because, you know, if you can be disciplined in school, you can be disciplined on your own. It's just a matter of you telling yourself what to do, or finding courses that are structured already. Like I talk about this all the time. You know, there's websites like Rebelway for Houdini that give you an 8-week or 10-week arc of what to do. Over this week, you got to do this. This week, you got to do this. And you know, parse out your time, do what you need to do, meet the goal by the end
Yeah.
of the week and do the same thing and the same thing. And it's the same idea of just turn your homework in, but it's a lot more curated. You have access to the classes for the rest of your life. And again, it's the idea of you don't really know who you're going to get as a professor. And there's some excellent professors at film school. I'm certainly not saying that, but you know exactly the professor that you are choosing. And that is another thing about film school that I find very interesting. The rate my professor thing. I don't know if that's still a thing that people do,
Oh yeah.
but I scramble to rate my professor. I want the best one. I
Mm.
want the one that maybe people find hard or challenging or interesting, you know, because I don't want the hot tamale teacher. I'm not interested. Like the idea that you can't even necessarily pick the instructor and you may get landed with the one that nobody wants at the
Yeah.
same rate as the great one that everybody's clamoring for is it's not ideal. And it's hard to make that available for everybody, but
I think a lot of people want that structure and need it though.
Yeah.
I did.
Mhm.
I
It's
definitely
beneficial,
did.
certainly.
Yeah. I was like, you know, a year of junior college, just kind of in my hometown, still making movies and stuff, but you know, I felt a lack of structure. I was
Yeah.
like, I want to go somewhere where it's just like, I know when I'm going to show up, I'm going to learn about film, learn about art, you know, be in a new place
Mhm.
too, and like have a goal. And, you know, having that was, I think, beneficial for me at that age. Like when the alternatives were, you know, float around and, you know, smoke weed or, you know,
Yeah.
party with friends or, you know, just make goofy YouTube videos.
Mhm.
So it was very like that was just for me. It was nice.
yeah.
I do want to kind of go back to what you were saying though, Jonah, about, you know, getting on set and PAing and like starting from the bottom. I hate to break it to you, but you're probably gonna be doing that anyway after you finish film
Yeah, yeah,
school.
no,
Oh,
it's
for
very
sure.
true. It's very
Um,
true.
Like I think one thing that you do hear a lot from, you know, people who don't go to film school is about how snooty people who went can be when they get on set because they're expecting to, you know, come in at an entry level job.
Yeah.
Whereas no one really cares at all that you went to film school.
No one
They're
really
like, great,
asks.
so you know how to open a C-stand? Good, do it. That's what you'll be doing. Go to the grip truck. And you're going to start from the bottom almost like either way, in
Mhm.
my experience, at least. Like
no,
when
mine
I
too.
got out of film school, you know, I was doing freelance cinematography, but like, yeah, when times got slow, it was like, shit, I'll take some PA work.
Mhm.
Like, let's go. Like
Yeah.
a couple $100 a day. Hey,
It's just
we're
this.
opening C-stands. Let's
Is
go.
is there an equivalent, Griffin, like that entry level like first step that you recommend to someone, if maybe before or after, that is like maybe not as talked about?
Yeah, so I
Mm.
think this might be an example of where like film and art differ because you know, if your dream in life is to work on like major motion pictures, there probably isn't like a way to necessarily do that as like a hobby. Like I don't know how feasible it is to make Interstellar on nights and weekends, but
Yeah.
hopefully there's something that applies to everyone in any creative field for this is I would encourage you before going to art school to think really carefully about whether or not this is something that you want to be your career
Mhm.
or just to be like the thing you do.
Mhm.
Because in my life, I've noticed there's really no way to know until you've done it for a job. But I've seen enough people go to art school because, you know, every guidance counselor, you know, everyone in their family was like, you got to go to college. What's the thing you're good at? And they're like, the thing I'm good at is I like drawing. And then they go to art school and they're like, man, I don't like it like this. Because the truth
Like that
is,
much.
as an art professional, unless you are super, super fortunate, you are going to spend a lot of time not drawing what you want to draw. You are going to be drawing other people's ideas the way other people want them.
Mhm.
A lot of the time, it's not going to be stuff you like doing. And, you know, you might get to a point where people really, you know, they pick you because they value what, you know, the thing that you love doing is what's valuable to their project. And you end up on a project where you're drawing exactly what you want to. Or, you know, you kind of grind your way into that like RISD to New York editorial illustrator thing where you just get paid by magazine art directors to draw random stuff in your style. But if it is okay if you don't want to draw other people's drawings the way they want them to,
Mhm.
and it is okay if you want to have a gig doing something and energy to do
Mhm.
what you love. There is nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And in fact, that might be better than ruining the thing that you love by doing it for money. I would be so much happier
There's something.
for anyone listening to this if you maintained your love of drawing or painting or whatever creative thing and didn't do it for a job in rather than because I've had years where like I hated being creative because I was doing some work where it just sapped all my creative energy and then I was like, well, I'm not like making anything I'm proud of.
Mm.
So why am I not just like there's a time period where I was looking into becoming an apprentice cheesemaker.
Oh, really?
Okay, that's really cool.
Because I was like, dude, this whole art career thing is not panning out. Like I've always loved cheese. Like, could I make cheese? And then
You?
that wasn't. I mean, it's a tough industry to break into. But shout out to the cheesemonger.
What are they called?
Cheesemith.
I believe cheesemonger.
Hard
Oh,
to get
cheesemonger.
hard to
Okay.
cut
I
into
wasn't
that
sure if they
industry.
just sell them.
I like Cheese Smith though with the hammer just freaking.
I'll just be over here soaking in that humor. What you said actually really reminds me of my sister, who like I really look up to, and she did exactly that. And I can tell you firsthand. So she's an Air Force nurse, and she is like a complete badass, and studied and did ROTC along with a nursing degree, and was just completely focused on that career. And while she was doing that, she just so happens to be, I would say confidently, the best artist I know. Like when it comes to like drawing, painting, acrylic, she does like, and I'm going to butcher it, but when you like cut the negative out of something and then like press with ink.
Cheesemongering?
Yeah,
Cheesemongering?
cheese.
Something
It's
like
a
that?
cheese
That is?
craft.
Oh,
of some
cheese
sort.
cloth
print
craft?
making?
Yeah, print
Oh, my bad.
making.
Oh shit.
And she'll spend, she has a career where she's able to work a shift for 2 weeks at a time. And then she has a week sometimes. She'll just spend that whole time drawing. She was like, I'm just going to figure out how to like make a skateboard. So she just spent like a week and she like built one and like made like an ocean out of like, what's that style where they do, it's almost like shiny and that you like drip it, epoxy. Yeah. So she made an epoxy skateboard and then she just goes to work. And like what you're saying isn't just advice. Like I see someone in my life who does it, and like I'm envious at times because I'm like, dude, sometimes I do kind of feel like, man, I wish I was just like, my mom's doing a trip right now where she's biking all the way from Banff down to Mexico, and she's filming the whole thing. And she's like, hey, I really love for you to edit this for me, right? And the jaded part of me says, Mom, I don't have time for this. Yeah. I'm a professional who's editing all day. And what my heart tells me is, I actually really wish that I could do that for my mom.
Yeah.
And I wish that my art, in the intersection of my art and my personal life, was like easier to handle. And because like it is love and I love doing it. It's just when you do it all the time, it gets really hard to do that. Hey, can you do this for me? And my mom's like, I'll pay you. And I'm like, that's worse.
Yeah, it's so worse. That's so much worse.
So much worse. I don't want you to
accept.
pay. Like, would you pay my sister to, make you a little print? Like, that's absurd. Like, I love you. And so it's something that I think we all deal with. And so if you, and it's not to say that I don't struggle with it, but it's like, if you feel like that's already a problem in your life when you're like just getting into it, I think it's worth like really, thinking about, and you could be a cheesemaker,
well, especially with how expensive the thing is. And like, I still have guilt about the debt I put my parents in because they're the best parents ever. And they're like, yeah, we want to help you pay for this.
Yeah.
And I think we like split it or whatever. But like, it's just,
it
weighs on you, man.
Astronomical.
And especially in the arts, dude.
Yeah.
Like, and Griffin, you can probably attest to this even more because it feels like, I feel like there's less of a mold maybe for fine arts like you do than there's for film, right? Because like film school, it's like, okay, yeah, you have set jobs you can go to. But like, what's the mass job industry for an artist out of film school? Like, what is the goal there?
There's definitely a mold in cheese though.
There is. There you go. Hey.
I'm on fire. Go on.
The nice thing with commercial, like with film school, is like at least it's a commercial art. Because when you go to art school, it's like I have a career in large part because I went into a commercial art. Like illustration, graphic design, there are day jobs for that. I know a lot of people who follow their dreams. They went for what they were passionate about. Nothing wrong with doing that, by the way. This is not me saying anything negative about that. I think that's the right move. But if you get a BFA in oil painting, or like a BFA in graphite pencil drawing or something like that, your options are kind of get a master's and teach that, or hope that, somehow without nepotism, you are able to get a decent living out of the gallery world. Because I mean, the only reason I have a steady job is because I studied illustration and was able to kind of like talk my way into my first entry-level graphic design job. And like without that, I would probably not have a career.
Yeah.
My dad did something kind of similar, like to what you're saying. Like he studied graphic design. Like literally back in the day, it was like, lining out letters on a block, like on a freaking easel, and like, trying to make it all work. And you'd send the freaking collage into the magazine. They'd hopefully like make it all work. It was like janky, like pre-Photoshop. That got him by as he was like drawing characters and cool creatures and shit. Like he'd always been doing that. That was like his side hustle. And like he had to, pay the bills while he got his portfolio ready and finally, got a job at ILM. But like that was the commercial field that he studied for. And that was, I think, a smart move, because it's like I can apply my art to something that can actually make me money. And, it paid off there. So like there's this idea though that like, the schools try to sell you on the success stories of, like, what do we look up to? We look up to like fine artists, the big ones that we've all heard of. We look up to directors, like the frickin' old school 70s director, Lucas, Spielberg, all those guys who were all in cahoots with each other. That's who we look up to. Like as a student aspiring to go to film school.
Course.
And, at Dodge, they were like, yeah, we had this one director. She got out of school and her thesis got her like a music video gig, and she's like doing music videos now. It's like, cool. But that's like one person.
Yeah.
And like for me, in my experience at Brooks, it's like there are all sorts of people studying all sorts of things. But the consistently most successful ones, like after school, are the grips. And like
they'll never
this
stop
is
working,
not talking crap about grips. They're like some of the most hardworking people on a
100%.
dang film set, and they're jacked.
They're just so strong.
Also, but like they had it right, because they freaking were like, there's a void. Like there's always grip work needed. It's a very specialized, like, dude, being a grip is like, you got to know everything about how to shape light and, whatever. And they're freaking getting paid now.
They get paid.
Whereas the directors are like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And like, obviously there's some directors and cinematographers who've done really well. Yeah. But like, they had it right, I think. Yeah. It's like, and you can do that with like a certificate. You can do that with a trade school. It's like, if you really want to be on a set, think about how can I make money and like not have to live a hard life because I want to be this director. Like you can do that stuff on the side, man.
And
like,
to jump off that too, in the visual effects world specifically, I found I had like roughly like a 9-year freelance career before working here. And
9 years?
And yeah, 9 years, crazy. And I was literally never without work, because there is a huge void of VFX artists who are responsible, who are responsive, and who can get the job done. And I found that, in this industry, it's a very relational industry, and it's always like, it's all about who you know, which doesn't really help anybody. It's like, okay, so someone I don't know, that's not fair. But the reality is, it's an incredibly small community. And you notice that producers love to share names to other producers, and they'll ask you, do you have anyone you can recommend? And so one of the biggest things that I would recommend to any VFX artists who are entering the industry is obviously be able to do the work. So do your studies and make sure that you're capable in the craft, but be enjoyable to be with, be enjoyable to be around. The first supervision gig that I ever got was off a Facebook post. And and a friend of mine posted my reel, and it was for a big artist, but nobody knew she wasn't like forthcoming with who
That
it
was the name of the artist.
It was, yeah, big artist
Big
shooting on
artist.
Saturday, like submit reels. And there were a plethora of reels there. And my friend submitted mine, which I bless him. That was such a sweet thing to do because I looked at everybody else's reel and good Lord, they were better than me. They were just really talented industry professional VFX artists. But my reel, I made sure to include me dancing in it because I thought it would be funny. That was the only thinking that I had in my head.
Did you do that for your corridor
I
submission?
put it in the corridor submission too.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I'm gonna put me dancing in it because it shows a little bit of me, and maybe people will want to be around that kind of manic energy. I don't know. And I looked at other people's reels and much better than me. So I went to bed just going, oh, that was very sweet. Nothing will come of it. And I got a phone call saying, hey, can you be on set on Saturday?
Wow.
And it was a music video for Miley Cyrus. And I was VFX supervisor with no previous experience.
Oh my God.
And I got on set and I tried my best to act like I knew what I was doing.
Did you do the moves?
I did, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
No, but she asked me on the phone, she's like, do you know how to do this, this, and this? And I was like, yes, yes, and yes. But it was no, no, and no.
Yeah.
But that night I spent all night studying those things so that when I got to set, I would be prepared. And I was. When I got to set, I felt very comfortable and everything went well, thankfully. But at the end, I spoke to her one-on-one and I was like, I just got to know, like, why did you pick me? Thinking she was going to say like, oh, well, in this shot you showed blah, blah. No, she's like, you looked like you'd be fun to work with.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? Yeah. Like yeah.
If I can touch on that, I think that applies to pretty much any job field, because the last job I got before Corridor, I was I think 3 weeks away from running out of unemployment. My plan was to basically in the next week go apply at Starbucks and then apply at the warehouse where my cousin was a trucker for, and just like hope that I got something in my field before the end of the year. And this place picked me, and I asked them right before I quit to move to California to work here. I was like, because I was helping them interview my replacement.
Mhm.
And I was like, so why'd you guys pick me? And they're like, oh yeah, it was between you and someone else who had like basically the same level of portfolio, but like you had like a joke we really liked at the top of your website, and like you just seemed like a cool guy who I wouldn't mind sitting next to 40 hours a week. And it's not fair, but that's how it works a lot of the time. And it's interesting you bring up that story about saying yes, yes, and yes, but really it's no, no, and no. Because I've done that at a lot of jobs too. And when you hear something and someone's like, can you do this? And if you hear it and you're like, no, but I'm confident that I could
it's
learn.
an important distinction.
It's a yes. And what's really interesting about that is that statistically, men are more likely to do that than women. And men are more likely to look at a job listing that they are maybe not qualified for and have that reaction than women, statistically, at least in America. And so I would just like to share that for anyone listening.
Yep.
It is not only okay, but a good idea to kind of fudge that a little bit. And like, if there's something that you don't have experience doing, or maybe you don't know how to do, but you're like, I can absolutely learn how to do that. Take that risk, because there's a good chance it could get you that job that you might have not applied for.
To jump on that pile, like the first opportunity that I created for myself was I had a family friend who had told me that his uncle did commercials in Boston, and I was living up in New Hampshire, or I was visiting New Hampshire at the time. So I DM'd him and I was like, hey, it's the summer, I'm between semesters, and like I just said, advice to other people, I took my own advice and I was like, can I just work for you? Like, if you need a hand. And he was like, yeah, you want to like swing by? We should, we could meet. And I went to their studio in Allston, Massachusetts, and they had just kind of moved into the building, and we hung out a little bit, and I was hoping I made a good impression. And then genuinely, the editor was working on a Rolling Stones ad at the time. And I was so enamored by the process of the work that we had kind of wrapped up, and I got the sense that they kind of wanted me to leave respectfully. And I spoke to the editor. I just kind of like to the side, and I was like, hey, I don't mean to be intrusive, but would it be a problem if I just pulled up a stool? I won't talk to you. I just really want to watch you work. Like it is so exciting to me to see you like make this thing. And he was like, oh, sure, man.
Yeah.
And I sat there for like 6 hours without moving. And then and that was all that we had ever scheduled to do. Like that was the whole meeting. And then I just like that the end of the day happened because we had talked in the morning and I left. And the next day I got a phone call in the morning and the guy who I had DM'd was like, "What are you up to today, man?" And I was like, "Oh," and I think I made something up because I didn't want to see blame. And he was like, "Yeah, Jack needs a hand. You should just come in. Like, let's just." And I worked for them every day that summer.
Whoa.
And then the next summer, I was their assistant editor officially. The summer after that, I became an editor there. I started working part-time through college. By the time I had left there, I was one of the 2 editors at the company. And I had built a portfolio for myself that I applied to Corridor with. That's all to say, just be a person who like genuinely loves what they do and like wants to learn more, because that shit is contagious. And, you know, you might not run into an opportunity like that like the first time you try. I think I was really lucky and I kind of like lightning struck in a way, but it's what you're saying, man. It's just, you know, if you're authentically intrigued, if you're like searching for answers, answers will find you.
And
you know?
and yeah, it's the idea also of lightening the room that you're in. Like be a light for any room that you enter, and don't darken the mood, and don't bring negativity in. And it's something that, you know, throughout my freelance career, I've certainly had my ups and downs where you know, you don't feel too good and you bring a mood to set and stuff like that. And I'll just encourage anyone out there to maintain positivity, because that is a very attractive quality in anyone that you want to work with. You want to be around someone who makes you feel like, oh, just a little bit lighter, a little bit more fun, and a little bit more enjoyable. Because the reality is, this industry, it's not that serious. Like we're making goofy things all over the world. Movies, you know, with orcs and stupid things exploding and aliens coming and waddling around. Like
aliens,
it's all nonsense anyway. And so, you know, keeping that light alive inside of you, that whimsical kind of childish fun side will make you infinitely more attractive to people outside of college. But, you know, obviously to bring it back to the idea of being in university, you know, it's anyone out there who's currently in and unsure. It's like, I can tell you from my experience that no one has ever asked for my degree. No one has ever really asked where I went.
Man.
It's never come up.
This whole podcast is like called "Should I Go to Film School?"
Yeah,
I think it should be called "Should I Go to Dance School?" You know, and I think
it should.
yes.
Wait,
Yes,
it should be
you
called
should.
"Should I Get Into Cheese?"
Yeah, Get into cheese making,
Mark it down,
cheese
Christian.
smithing.
Shout out to the cheesemakers. You,
Honestly,
from what I've seen in the 3 YouTube documentaries, you do not have an easy job, and you deserve higher wages, because
Dude,
that's honestly why
Everyone loves cheese, man.
we got to have a cheese cast where we talk more about this
Yeah.
at some point.
There's one thing that I think we've been circling, and it's almost weirdly meta. So like, stay with me here. Don't think you're going to be visible in this industry. I think that's like a really important thing, in the sense that like when you talk about grips and you talk about like freelancing, like you have to be comfortable with the fact that like you can be an artist without like a million people knowing who you are. And hold for the irony of us saying that on a podcast, right? That's why I'm saying this is meta. It's like all of us have a certain amount of like, people know who we are or know of the thing that we do. But like, you don't know who is the grip on Titanic. You don't know who the lighting designer was on for the best picture this year, unless you're like way into that type of thing. That's all to say, like, I got lost in the sauce as a young person, like watching like influencer style videos about filmmaking on YouTube, thinking like, I just have to be seen. I have to make things that are like visible in that way. And if you kind of zoom out and you think about that formula, it becomes very strange. And if accountants were making accountant content that was as flashy as filmmakers make filmmaker content
idea, by the way,
on YouTube, you would see how goofy it is.
Yeah.
You know, and at the end of the day, this is an art and it's a huge industry. And know that like what you do in this industry is important no matter who's seeing it. And it doesn't matter if you're talking to one person or a million people. Like if you do love what you do, that's the key.
Yeah.
And I think that finding that is like what you should be searching for outside of education, outside of a career.
Yeah.
You know?
No, if that's your goal, to be seen and be like an influencer who like does film or art or whatever, don't go to school. Just start putting yourself on camera.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
there are so many jobs and thankless, you know, hours worked on film sets that, you know, just no one ever bats an eye. And like, it sucks because it's like, oh yeah, I love that movie. Who's the director? Oh, cool. Yeah, he does great work. It's like, he does great work or she does great work. But
Yeah,
like, what
you're
about
so
all
right,
the other
dude.
people just like slaving away to get this thing done, long hours, especially in the VFX industry, dude.
Yeah, man,
Like,
it's
geez,
crazy, and there's certainly a massive element also in the film school side. Like everyone is out for them in their own department, in their own area, and there's a lot of friendship and camaraderie. But at the end of the day, you're kind of responsible for yourself. So know yourself, know how into it you really are. And you know, if you're thinking about leaving film school, like I didn't do it lightly. I knew I'd have to explain to my parents, who would be devastated, and I was scared because I didn't know, like, am I really screwing this up? Well, all my classmates looked down on me. Turns out they like supported it and were like, dang, that was so cool. But I remember when I was leaving, I had one thought, and it like kind of haunted me until I finally took the step. And it was, if I'm not willing to bet on me, then why should anybody else? And that was one thing that I've always kept in my head, where I choose to invest in myself because I know how much I want this. And I feel like as long as that's the fuel that's pushing you, you're going to make it.
Yeah.
You know?
With film school or without.
With film school or without.
Like, it is investing in yourself. Just don't party the whole time. Just imagine, do a cost breakdown of like, what's my tuition per like hour in film school? And
I did that too. That hurt me.
It hurts. Yeah. And it's like, crap, dude, how much money did I just waste watching Netflix?
Will help you focus.
You know, like, so I don't know, like, take it seriously if you're going to do this, because it's super expensive. It is a lot of time away from being on set. There are benefits to it. You know, the people you meet, the networks you can make, and the stuff, if you go to the right school, that you can actually use and have in your hand and have access to.
Yeah.
And all the other, you know, liberal arts kind of knowledge you can gain if you want. But at the same time, you're going to be humbled either way, I think, after you graduate. And you need to be ready to be humbled. And, you know, only then can you achieve success. I think. I really think so.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, most of the stuff that's available at film school, it's obviously it's more expensive than it's ever been, but it's also a really exciting time to be an artist, because I mean, this is a guesstimate, but about 80% of what you have access to at the film school, you can find ways to get outside of film school. And so it's only like those niche areas, like meeting people. You can meet people outside of film school. I do it all the time. It's a very small community, and people will pass your name around, I promise. So depending on your reasons for going, I think it's something that more people should be open to not. That's all I'm going to say is it might be right for you. It might not be, and that's okay. Either one is totally fine. But I think that the conversation of I need to go to school is nonsense, and you don't. I think that's per person.
Sorry, mom and dad.
Sorry,
and show
Mom.
your parents this podcast if they're pushing you and you're like, I don't really know. Really, like, hey, hearing, you know, the perspectives of 4 different artists working in an industry.
Yeah.
Not the industry, an industry.
In an
a parallel one. Maybe this would be useful. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I could probably benefited from hearing a podcast like this when I was, you know, kind of hell bent on doing the whole school thing.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
I had a very dear friend in the industry who's my directing partner, who spoke that into me, saying, "Look, this is an $80,000 medallion. Like, he would wear his
that you wear under your
degree.
shirt. When
you
you
wear
set,
under your
though.
shirt.
No one's gonna see it."
And he was the first one to push me in this direction. I wouldn't have done it without him. So hopefully, this serves as, you know, not encouragement to not do it. I don't think that's any of our purpose here. Is just be open to what is right for you, because it is a wide spectrum of possibility, which is exciting but also daunting.
Yeah.
But yeah, trust yourself. Trust yourself. Because as long as that's the fuel, you'll do great.
Yeah, man. It's like, just one last anecdote. I was taking a directing class and, like, you know, directing a short film in film school, you know, big guy on campus, you know, hey, on set, walk on, I'm the director, you know, whatever. And I'm of course joking a little bit, but like that, like, same weekend, like, I get a call from Jake and he's like, hey dude, I'm shooting like this little pilot and like, it's like down in LA, like, do you have a camera I can borrow? Like, can you just come like help out? It's like, okay, yeah, the next day. So I go down there. And it's just like, I'm just like, you know, helping set up lights, and like they're like using my camera, like some other guys shooting with my camera, because like, I don't know, I wasn't good enough, I guess. But you know, it's like, but it's that contact that you know helped me get where I'm now. You know, it's that humbling and that, like, yes, I will I'll do anything, man. I just
Yeah.
want to be on a set.
Be gracious and
And
eager and available.
It paid off a little
because
bit,
you
know?
never ever know who the person is that's
Totally.
going to help you in your next chapter.
Totally.
That's great advice, man. Any other final thoughts on this? Like,
let us know your favorite cheeses. I think I'm really partial to pepper jack. No, and this is something I haven't touched on in this podcast, but I took a break in the middle of college, mostly because COVID kind of started. I'm exposing my youngness here, but and I remember making that decision and also the decision to go back. So like, as much as I might come off as a little negative here, I think it's really important to finish the things that you start.
Yeah.
And I know that's like maybe a dig at
Yeah.
you, Jordan.
I'm going back.
Well, here's the thing, and this is what I mean. Like, you started thinking about not going, and you actually finished. You actually committed to not going, which is like good. Like you didn't kind of waffle. You weren't that kid in film school who's like, I hate it here. Everything sucks. I don't like it. And then you just like stuck around for 4 years being like a whiny little mope. Like, and I knew kids like that who were like, I'm better than this. And I'm like, well, you're here. So, maybe be grateful. And so that's all to say, no matter what you choose and what you don't, like, listen to yourself. And it's important to like follow through as an artist. Like, that's something that is hard to teach. And that's the most important thing that's going to carry you for your career. Because if you can't finish a project, you will not make it in this industry. And film school is a project, right? Or not going to film school is a project. So treat both
That's good.
as seriously as you would a film that you want to make, because you have to finish one thing to move on to the next. It's old as time. My mom used to tell me this growing up: finish one project before you start another, clean up after yourself. It's the same thing. And so no matter what you do, just make sure you really put a pin in whatever you do and stake claim to that decision. And then you'll be ready to take on the next thing. That's what I would want to say.
Yeah, man. Totally
Sweet.
agree. Griffin, what's your closing thoughts on school versus no school versus
I think
journey?
Jonah, you nailed the title for this video. First of all,
I love that you're thinking about that while we're doing it. You're like, title, thumbnail ideas.
Oh, yeah, I'm sitting here. I have been sitting here thinking about what the thumbnails are doing this whole time.
I love that.
It's a job.
I don't think I really could have said it better than anyone else. Just if college is what you need to do what you want to do, 100% do it. Just make sure that to the best of your ability, you figure out what you want to do instead of letting other people tell you what you should do.
Yeah, it's not a mystical machine that's gonna convert you into something. It's a tool, a very expensive tool. So be sure that you want that tool or need that tool. But I think I'm glad we got to do this, guys. This is this is something that's very, very near and dear to my heart with my experience. So it's cool to hear your guys' experience too. Hopefully you guys got something out of it. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back next time.
You want to take us out, Nick, with a song?
Should we do that again? Is that a bad?
If it's bad, we'll cut it. But if it's good, we'll keep it.
We need to finish what we started. You're right.
All at once, though.
All at
Remember
once.
the harmonies?
Yes. Of
Okay.
course.
All right.
3, 2, 1.
Some.